Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to wherever you are from, to all the youth delegates, participants, and colleagues dialing in from different parts of the world for the first ever webinar today of IRENA Youth Talk. We are very, very delighted to have all of you here with us, joining us, and we are very excited to start this. From renewable energy being a topic that was brought into attention over the last couple of years, especially with the rise of the clean development mechanism, to a point that where now renewable energy is seen as a primary solution to climate crisis and being an SDG target of itself, we have seen a range of conversations and perspectives emerge. It would be fair to say that engagement of young people within the renewable energy sector has also evolved equally. From being a topic of research to them, to young people being community organizers, starting their own initiatives, young entrepreneurs, they're already taking lead and making change all over the world. Over the last years, we have also seen young people involved in the review of SDG 7, whether that was at the high-level political forum in 2018, and this year as well, where SDG 7 or renewable energy continues to be an entry point for high-level political forum 2020. To give you more a background, IRENA, together with the Youth Constituency, hosted the first ever IRENA Youth Forum in January 2020, where young people from over 40 countries came together for 4 days of dialogues, exchange, learning, and networking, and also presented the outcomes of their work to the first ever time in the IRENA Assembly, to governments and other institutions. This webinar series therefore is a continuation of the great work and partnership that IRENA Youth and youth organizations all over the world have been building to mainstream youth engagement in context of renewable energies, make young people agents of change, and empower them as they do their work. As we continue this webinar, I also want to recall that we are not in normal times. We are in middle of a pandemic, a health crisis, one that generations like mine have never witnessed before. So wherever you are joining from, you have all my solidarity and support, and I hope you and your families are doing fine in this aftermath. So let's get started today. And in the agenda for today, we have different sessions that we will be going through. We'll be starting with a short briefing from our DG of IRENA, followed by presentation from the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, followed by panel discussions where you will have chances to interact directly with the DG and youth leaders from all around the world. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. As the first speaker of the day, we are very delighted to have Director General of IRENA, Mr. Francesco to deliver opening keynote remarks and also engage with us later during the webinar in different interaction segments throughout. Mr. took the office of DG in April 2019 and brings more than 30 years of experience in field of climate, sustainability, and international cooperation. This specifically includes his leading of the Italian delegation to UNFCCC's COP21, where the Paris Agreement was adopted. And he served as the delegation coordinator until COP24 in Katowice. He has also been responsible for preparation and organization of G7 when Italy was the presidency in 2017. Under his leadership, IRENA as an agency has forged a series of new partnerships with UN organizations, including UNDP, UNFCCC, Green Climate Fund, among others. A key priority for his tenure is to implement a more action-oriented approach to agencies' work. And if I may add, Mr. Lacamera has also been a big advocate for youth engagement and engagement of different stakeholders in the context of IRENA's work and preparation. We are very honored to have you here with us, Mr. Camera. And now I hand over the floor with you to deliver the deliver the opening remarks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ugrana. I don't know if I pronounced well your name, for your nice introduction, for an introduction, for your nice word. And dear all, I'm very, very happy to have you here from all over the world. I'm delighted to welcome you to the first Youth Talk, where we will discuss your perspective on the impact of the COVID-19 on the renewable energy sector and on the energy transformation. At the beginning, I'd like to thank our moderator, and panelists from the UN and UNEP Major Group for Children and Youth, the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, Students' Energy, and some of the participants of the first IRENA Youth Forum last January, which was held at the margin of the IRENA Assembly. We welcome your strong engagement in this event and beyond. Youth are key agents for social change, innovation, and climate action. In recent years, you have been increasingly involved in the sustainable development discourse by contributing to shaping the agenda of tomorrow. You, the youth, you play an important role in accelerating the global energy transformation. And IRENA has been engaging with you through a number of capacity building initiatives. As mentioned already, through the first IRENA Youth Forum at our Assembly this year, we enhanced our engagement in amplifying the voice of the youth on the energy transformation. So, because the future is yours. Our Youth Talk today is a continuation of the engagement through which we want to further enable you to drive positive changes for your communities and also in other parts of the world. We are going through difficult times. The current crisis has exposed the vulnerability of our energy systems, as well as the economic system. And we recover, rather than building back better, we need to build anew. We need to build systems that are more sustainable, more resilient, more just, and more prosperous. Solidarity will be essential among countries, but also between generations. In this context, renewable energy is a key solution. Importantly, it enables us to tackle two of the largest crises we are facing at the moment: the health crisis, but also the climate crisis. It is imperative that we ensure that our short-term response for recovery are in line with our medium and long-term perspective goal, as been envisaged in the first Global Renewable Outlook that we launched just a few weeks ago. So be coherent with the Paris Agreement, with the Sustainable Development Goals in the long-term perspective is absolutely essential. In addition, renewables can contribute significantly to improving welfare and stimulating economic growth, including by providing sustainable and affordable solutions to close the energy access gap, enabling people, especially youth, in underserved community to access to energy services, provided them with essential services, including improved health services and better education, as well as economic opportunities. Adopting renewables can create employment and boost local income in both developed and developing markets. IRENA analysis show that employment in the renewable sector may be 4 times from now to 2050, from the 11 million of today to the more 40 million in 2050. This is of critical importance as a country look to take unemployment and stimulate their economies. Today, during the panels and following discussion, I look forward to hearing from you on the role of renewable energy can play in your community and addressing the most pressing challenges of our time. And also how, as IRENA, we can support you to have a more active role in building a prosperous and sustainable future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camara, and also thank you for taking time in your busy schedule for joining us here with us today. We are aware that you have ministerial sessions going on, and we really do appreciate your time to spend this interaction with the youth delegates from all over the world. I also highlight the key points that you mentioned in your presentation, where you tell young people that renewable energy jobs are rising, and at the same time, it is quite important to explore how the pandemic is affecting those jobs, especially for young people and women and those in minority communities, young migrants or young people from indigenous communities who are working in informal jobs, and how they are being affected. And we'll hear more about this in the coming days or in the coming minutes about this particular discussion as well. The next in the line, we have a very special video message from the government of the UAE. Dr. Thani Al Zaudi and Her Excellency Shamma Al Mazrui have collaborated together in this video to mark the World Environment Day preparations and celebrations that took place over the last weekend, held under the theme of biodiversity. Their message aims to raise awareness about the importance of preserving nature and its precious resources for our future generations. This video also features announcement of their initiative called Youth for Nature, a joint platform by the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment of UAE and the Federal Youth Authority that includes a series of initiatives targeting youth, such as youth circles, nature discussions, professional nature conservation programs, and much more. I would kindly ask our colleagues now to show us this video message from our dear colleagues from the UAE government.
يحتفل ملايين حول العالم كل عام بيوم البيئة العالمي،
وهذا العام نسلط الضوء على التنوع البيولوجي وأهمية رفع الوعي والعمل من أجل حماية البيئة. وفي دولة الإمارات بدأ الاهتمام بالتنوع البيولوجي للبيئة على يد الوالد المؤسس المغفور له بإذن الله الشيخ زايد بن سلطان طيب الله ثراه، حيث ركز المغفور له على تحقيق التوازن بين النهضة الاقتصادية والعمرانية وحماية البيئة ومواردها الطبيعية وتنوعها البيولوجي وضمان استدامتهم. بدأ الوالد المؤسس في إنشاء العديد من المحميات الطبيعية، حيث شكلت موائل آمنة للعديد من الأنواع الحية في الدولة. وعلى خطاه صارت القيادة الرشيدة وبذلت كافة الجهود في تنمية المحميات الطبيعية وتوسعتها، حيث أصبحت دولة الإمارات اليوم تضم 49 محمية طبيعية، منها 10 مواقع مخصصة للأراضي الرطبة ذات الأهمية العالمية وضمن اتفاقية رمزار. كما نفذت الدولة العديد من البرامج للإكثار وإعادة تأهيل حماية العديد من الأنواع المهددة بالانقراض ولضمان زيادة أعدادها، كذلك إعادتها إلى مواطنها الطبيعية. وتستمر وزارة التغيير المناخي والبيئة بالتعاون مع الجهات المحلية بجهود الحفاظ على التنوع البيولوجي من خلال برامج عدة، منها تطوير خارطة الإمارات الذكية لرأس المال الطبيعي، وتحديد خارطة المواقع الهامة للطيور في الدولة، وتطوير الخطة الوطنية للمحافظة على السلاحف البحرية وأسماك القرش، وكذلك إطلاق مشروع السياحة البيئية كنوز الطبيعة في الإمارات. ويأتي صندوق الشيخ محمد بن زايد للمحافظة على الكائنات الحية كأحد أهم المنظمات المانحة للمساعدات الصغيرة للحفاظ على أنواع الكائنات الحية المهددة بالانقراض حول العالم. وبجانب هذه الجهود كافة تستمر الجهات المحلية وهيئات البيئة المختلفة في الدولة في تسخير كافة الإمكانيات للحفاظ على استدامة هذا القطاع الحيوي ودعم جهود صون الطبيعة في الإمارات. كما نفخر في دولة الإمارات بتمكين الشباب وتعزيز دورهم الفعال في دفع عجلة العمل لضمان استدامة التنوع البيولوجي من خلال الدعم المستمر لجهودهم في العديد من المبادرات، مثل تطوير الأبحاث العلمية، وضع وتطوير التشريعات والسياسات لتعزيز أنظمة حماية وصون الطبيعة، إدارة المحميات ومراقبتها وتنميتها للحفاظ على الحياة البرية، وكذلك تمثيل الدولة في المحافل المحلية والدولية لتعزيز مكانتها الرائدة في مجال التنوع البيولوجي.
واستكمالا لهذه الجهود يسرنا الإعلان عن مجموعة مبادرات الشباب من أجل الطبيعة، والتي تهدف إلى وضع وتنفيذ مجموعة من البرامج لتمكين الشباب، تتضمن حلقات شبابية ومناظرات من أجل الطبيعة، إضافة إلى برامج مهنية لحفظ وصون الطبيعة. تعلمنا جميعاً من الظروف الحالية أن تكاتفنا وتوحيد جهودنا هو السبيل الأمثل لمواجهة كافة التحديات. وفي يوم البيئة العالمي 2020 نتعهد للعمل معاً لحماية التنوع البيولوجي ولضمان استدامته لمستقبل أكثر ازدهاراً لنا جميعاً، من أجل الطبيعة
ومن أجل استدامة كوكبنا.
Thank you very much for that video message. And I think the message is very clear that these are times where we have to step up to protect our nature, protect the biodiversity and our species all across the world. And there is very less time to do that. And science, in fact, has been very, very clear on this. So thanks again to the UAE government colleagues for this message, and also given the fact that they are host of IRENA Secretariat in Abu Dhabi as well. Moving on next, it is my honor to present you our next keynote speakers, our colleagues from the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, the formal youth engagement mechanism to the UN system and allied agencies on SDG 7, including IRENA, Sea for All, UN Energy, and others, on sustainable energy and related topics. We have with us here today Chiagozi Ude and Benjamin, the elected global focal points of the constituency. Ude is a 25-year-old youth advocate from Nigeria who has been active in climate and environmental movement since a young age. Among other things, he serves in the Youth Board of Plan for the Planet, Youth Engagement Mechanism to African Union, and has served as the younger focal point for 2019. Benjamin, a 21-year-old student, also living in Abu Dhabi at the moment, has been involved in the research on renewable energies, youth engagement on renewable energies in the European level, and also is part of the youth organization Science Policy Circle. It is our honor to have both of you here today, Ude and Benjamin, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ravna, for the excellent introduction. As you already gave introduction of what is SDG 7 Youth Constituency, I would just like to say that everything that we do is a result of team effort, and we are very happy that earlier in May we onboarded a team of excellent regional and thematic focal points that are supporting us, and everything that you will see in this presentation is also a result of the inputs that we received from many youth from around the world. So in this difficult time, we would like to focus more on how COVID-19 crisis has impacted youth in the energy sector. And we will start with talking about those ways that the impacts that COVID has had. So we identified three main pathways that create disrupted energy access. So firstly, as a great number of people around the world has been put in a lockdown, many of them have not been able to purchase fuels, either for cooking or for transportation. Secondly, as everything has moved online, the demand for electricity has skyrocketed, and for many countries, their electricity generation are not sufficient to provide for everyone. And what could help is construction of new energy infrastructure, but this has been stopped because of health concerns and safety concerns, which are very valid, but nonetheless, they can contribute to creating this disrupted energy access that then widens the energy gap between electricity supply and electricity demand, and drives many problems that include problems with education, job losses, loss of customers and revenues for companies in the renewable energy sector, disrupted advocacy, and food scarcity and increased waste. So to give some more specific examples, in terms of education, as we all know, many people have moved to remote education. However, that has been disrupted, as in some places the electricity access to be able to join classes is not possible. Moreover, lockdown has prevented many training programs, internships, and degree programs that require in-person educational component. And this is very, very relevant to youth currently preparing to start their career in the renewable energy sector. And those both problems have compounded, and unfortunately, we may be seeing shortage of young professionals in this sector in the upcoming years. Secondly, there are many job losses because renewable energy sector, like many others, has suffered. And there is also reduced investment. So many renewable energy startups that would like to begin their operations are not able to do so. And those that exist have to adjust their operations to change governmental regulations like social distancing. That clearly increases their costs. Youth are also very impacted by the fact that they often have less connections and less experience in the field. So they are the ones that are the most likely to be fired by their companies. Then when it comes to this, what we already mentioned about lockdown, while some sectors have benefited from being recognized as essential workers, in most of the places, renewable energy startups and companies unfortunately haven't been so, and thus companies are not able to continue their operations and therefore need to cease. And then energy is very important when it comes to production and storage and distribution of food. So because of lack of fuel that I mentioned before, the harvest is disrupted, as well as storage and further transportation. Then on the consumer end, because there may be no electricity, many food will go to waste because there is no way to store it properly, or will not be possible to make it ready for eating because there is no fuel to cook it. And the last aspect of impact is in the advocacy field, where we have been seeing very powerful youth movement to advocate for greater climate action and deployment of renewable energies. Because of lockdown, those protests and gatherings are not possible anymore, and that to a large extent impacts the visibility of the movement and potentially the keeping on the promises. So that's all on the side of the impacts, and now I'm passing to Chagozi.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Benjamin. Thanks a lot for that excellent presentation, and good evening from Abuja in Nigeria here. I'm just going to quickly just start off from where Benjamin stopped already to highlight concrete examples of how this is affecting young people, globally. Members of our constituency already sent us how it affects them in different ways, and I will just be doing just that to present that here. And first, I would start to say to talk about the education part. So, in terms of education, we have this our colleague from Kenya, Cherub Soy, who have come up with a new curriculum of children to introduce them into renewable energy and to teach them how it is very key to learn renewable energy components to save the planet. She's also in the process of writing a children's book on the series on the same topic, just trying to utilize her time while in the lockdown to educate young people on the use and importance of renewable energy. And then a lot of young people are trying to innovate how they can navigate around the lockdown, especially when they are not considered as essential workers. And we have people innovating, such as Abidin Olasupo, who have introduced a gas on the wheel that they now deliver cooking gas through digital ordering to their users and to their customers. And then we have a really concrete, this one from Uganda, from Muheto Ima, green and bioenergy. We have the situation where there are lower sales and also reduced revenue, and they've had to make very tough decisions regarding laying off workers. They've had to transition to weekly shifts to accommodate their workers and enable them have social distancing, but of course have had tough conversations about laying off some of them, because at the reduced revenue, they can't actually pay the salaries of all of them at this time. And then they've also committed to educating their neighbors on the precautionary measures they are supposed to take at this time. But the loss of job comes in concrete ways as this. And then, yes, Benjamin already hinted at this, where you have reduced investment. There are a lot of contracts, a lot of deals that have been signed, but when are they going to take off? So with the lockdown already on, to continue electrification projects that are already signed off, it's quite difficult. To implement new agreements have been quite difficult for some of our colleagues. And this is Yose from Peru, who has also sent in to say that it's very difficult for them to implement new agreements, and government, has to delay their financing now because they can't really do anything on the ground until they are considered safe enough for them to come out and work. So a lot of financing will not be coming through. These agreements will have to wait or renegotiated, and their timelines apparently shifted. So it's really difficult to restart the installations until the quarantine period is over. But of course, they've developed other strategies to guide their customers to continue the non-specialized work through webinars and video calls, which is quite innovative. They can actually reach your users and try to guide them through what they could do without you being physically present. And they've also deployed webinar and video series to do other public engagement. And then there's also a lot of navigation around lower sales and revenues. We have our colleague Joaquim Tamaro from Kenya, who developed a new app in order to boost economic gains of people living, especially in remote areas. And this app will be used to scale fisheries by breaking their integration barrier with the global economy. The app, this process envisages to use renewable energy source, especially the solar system, to store these fishes and make sure they are ready for sale. The prototype, we understand, is ready for implementation. And then there are also, like, a lot of other submissions that we got cut across, exploring online resources such as reports and webinars to deepen expertise in renewable energy sources, engaging with local, national, and regional decision makers, and of course global, as we are engaging now via online platforms, and also participating in various other online events. Very important days, Biodiversity Day, World Environment Day, to educate and to build capacity, because for us this is really essential that we take this period to build capacity of young people in areas such very important as renewable energy. And here we have our official membership list. You can scan those and join us. We have a WhatsApp group. We're very happy to welcome you. You can just sign up in there on our link, or just scan it with your phone, and then we'll be there to welcome you. We're really excited. We kicked off, and we're looking forward to welcoming you all to work regionally across various thematic areas and also globally with all our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benjamin and Chiagozi, for that incredible presentation, which not only highlighted what young people are facing as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, but also fills us with hope that young people are stepping up, taking action, and doing their part in their communities, in their countries, and already being these agents of change when it comes to driving action on sustainable energy. I also congratulate you for a formalization of the Youth Constituency as the space for civil society continues to shrink within the UN system. It is more than important that we have democratic spaces where young people and the organizations from different countries, irrespective of their sizes, scope, areas of work, have equal opportunities that come from the UN system and allied avenues. And again, the Youth Constituency provides that space. So I thank you for your service, and I thank you for the incredible presentation that you have shared with us. So colleagues, now we are going to moving on to the first part of our panel discussion. And the question for the first part is, how can renewable energies or renewables help reduce the impact of COVID-19, and what is the role of role of youth in these? The UN system has been very vocal on mobilizing the Build Back Better narrative, with the notion that we cannot get back to the normal that we came from before COVID-19. The latest IRENA report has estimated that in the course of last 10 years, there has been over threefold rise in the use of renewables, and we have seen mobilization of climate community on just transition narrative. Therefore, let us examine what role of young people in this. And today, here we have a diverse panel with us. So I would like to introduce you to the first speaker, which is Mr. Shibona Ogumana from Nigeria. He is the participant of the first ever IRENA Youth Forum that took place in January this year, and also co-founder of Renew Cycle Energy, which is a youth organization promoting renewable energies within Nigeria. He is also part of Energy Institute, Young Professional Networks, Nigeria branch. He will be talking with us today on youth entrepreneurship and education in supporting societies and communities. Chibuna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ravna. First of all, I want to thank IRENA for this great opportunity to be on this panel. My name is Chiba Buena once again. The pandemic has affected the world adversely, economically and socially. However, it has presented and created new opportunities. It has changed the way needs are met, and it has also created new needs. The youth of today have the potential to create the solutions to meet these needs. The youth of today are also the next generation of business and social impact leaders and must have skin in the game. According to the first IRENA Global Renewables Outlook report, renewables jobs will increase by 42 million by 2050, and this is 4 times more than what it is today. For that reason, we need to start new ventures in renewable energy and also to build a sustainable future. For you to succeed in these ventures, they will need a lot of support. IRENA could support you by creating and starting IRENA could support you by creating and starting incubation programs and acceleration programs where youth could build the skills necessary to, start their ventures and also access funds for their projects. For example, Recycle Energy is currently undergoing an incubation program sponsored by All On and Clean Technology Hub in Nigeria. Secondly, IRENA could also connect youth to mentors and also project developers in country in order to develop the skills necessary to deliver the energy transition by 2050. An example of these tools that IRENA could also create are like the IRENA Project Navigator tool, which helps project developers to build bankable renewable energy projects. On education, youth must pursue transformative knowledge backed up by research and also in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. We are also going to leverage advocacy, which has always proven to be a powerful tool in order to address challenges in our world today. Also, we must prioritize health, safety, and environment education in order to educate our communities, our leaders, and our governments. Also, we must engage in advocacy in order to influence decision-making and policy-making. Let's not forget that over 2.5 billion people in the world still lack access to affordable and clean electricity, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN. And also, 3 billion people still lack access to clean cooking. These challenges are ours to solve, and it's time for us to act now. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Shibuna, for that excellent presentation and very concise, also in terms of what are your key expectations from young people from IRENA, what you expect an agency like IRENA to do for young people and with young people. So thanks for laying out those clear expectations as well. Next in the panel, we have Asma Robhaya from Tunisia. She is also one of the participants of the first IRENA Youth Forum, and she comes from Organization Education for Sustainable Development, ESD, where she is founder of the Proactive Youth Chapter. She will be speaking to us about role of renewables in the health sector as response to COVID-19 from a youth perspective. And I would also like to remind our speakers that we have a limited amount of time. So if you can keep your interventions brief, so we have more time for the interaction session as well. Asma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yougrata. Thank you for everyone who's attending our webinar. Thank you for our panelists and for IRENA to give us this amazing opportunity to share our perspective. So yeah, I was one of the delegates of the first IRENA Youth Forum, which was one of my best experiences that made me now more involved in this renewable energy transition. So as you know, the current COVID-19 situation stressed on the importance of having strong and sustainable health systems, and also on the importance of having renewable, uninterrupted, and reliable electricity. So here, renewable energy comes as a key component of this transition. So as youth, we have been researching and knowing more about what's going on in the world and how renewable energy can really help, and how renewable energy is helping the health sector all around the world in contributing and accelerating the global recovery due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I have a very short story to share with everyone. In a country under conflict, a child was taken to the hospital because he couldn't breathe. He had and they were and there was no electricity to power the ventilator because the generator was broken, and this country didn't have proper access to electricity. So unfortunately, this child died. So I believe we all imagine that renewable energy, and we know that renewable energy can make a positive impact, positive change all around the world. But did we imagine to what extent renewable energy can go, and that renewable energy can save people's lives? So if this hospital had renewable energy and had access to reliable energy, the life of this child and many other ones would be saved. So I believe in the current pandemic, many initiatives have been going on to really contribute to this transition and the situation all around the world. So I'll share with you some of the initiatives. For example, we have Sento Mobiles, which is a mobile disinfection container powered with renewable energy and offers protection against COVID-19. They provide contactless examination via e-glove system. We also have Simplify Power, which built a clean energy microgrid for COVID-19 hospital in migrants camp in Mexico. We have X-ray manufacturing, which built mobile medical units to support healthcare needs during COVID-19, and they included renewable energy solutions. We also have robots for testing, for disinfecting hospitals, for helping the medical staff, and in decreasing pressure on them and contact between them and patients. So I believe renewable energy all around the world, especially in countries that are really affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, is helping a lot. So we need to dedicate more awareness, more budgets, and make our policies more effective, because renewable energy is really the solution that we need for many crises, social, economic, and environmental. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Regional perspective as well with us here in the webinar. Next, I would like to invite Purva. She's from the coordination team of the Youth Constituency on Health, the SDG3 working group, and who will be talking to us today about access to energy as a prerequisite for quality healthcare, and what is the perspective of young people on this. Purva, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to first and foremost, before I start, thank IRENA for hosting this, and also the SG7 constituency for coordinating all of this so well. I'm going to talk a little about the energy and health nexus, and going to quickly jump into it. Energy consumption has direct and indirect effects on human health, primarily by inducing air pollution, safe water shortages, or even poor medical infrastructure. And medical infrastructure is often the easiest link and the most direct link to understand. It's absolutely essential to provide basic necessities to acquire safe medical care, for example, lighting, sterilizers, air conditioners, etc., or also in performing various diagnostic and therapeutic procedures such as clinical imaging, ECG, or even radiography, which is used in the treatment of several cancers. It's also vital in maintenance of cold chain systems that help in preserving vaccines and medicines, and also in refrigeration of blood. To put Asma's story into perspective with numbers, an average of 26% of health facilities in 11 sub-Saharan countries that were recently surveyed by the WHO had no electricity, and the number doubles up to almost 58% in some countries. According to a WHO fact sheet, over 289,000 women globally die from pregnancy and delivery-related complications each year. And most of these deaths in South Asia are preventable with simple lighting, operating, and blood transfusion services. Energy is not only linked with health in terms of medical care delivery, but is also very closely linked with certain diseases and conditions that many people and communities suffer from, including my own. There's ample evidence that proves fossil fuel consumption stimulates lung and respiratory diseases, Smoke exposure is also a very well-known risk factor for cancer. Nearly 3 billion people cook on rudimentary biomass and coal stoves, and exposure to smoke from these cause nearly half of pneumonia deaths in children under the age of 5, and 1/3 deaths of that are caused due to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Still, an estimated of almost 3.3 million people a year die from outdoor air pollution globally. And the effects aren't limited to just respiratory systems, but extend to cardiovascular complications, psychoendocrine system, and also the reproductive system and fertility. There's also convergence between air pollution and mental disorders, including depression and anxiety. Even inefficient home and office heating and cooling further causes air pollution, and the health risks that primarily come out of this is in forms of hypothermia and heat-related illnesses. Very often our health systems look independent, but we fail to recognize that the effectiveness of our health system is very directly dependent on the energy supply and access systems that support it. And moving at this point, when I just look at all of this, one thought becomes very clear. Moving to renewable sources isn't really an option, it's a requirement. And in light of the COVID crisis, it's fair to say that it's put this whole lattice under tremendous strain. It's not only put pressure on our health, on our energy grids, and also disrupted access to healthcare, but people suffering from pre-existing respiratory conditions, a number of which are attributed to the effects of fossil fuel consumption, are now susceptible to COVID more than others. In the backdrop, there are also a number of solutions like solar vaccine refrigerators, solar-powered mobile health screening units. And that makes me ask myself a question, which I'm also going to leave to you while I end my intervention. Is it the dearth of solutions or the lack of strong will and intent that keeps us from moving forward and protecting not only our natural resources, but the health of millions across the globe? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Purva, for highlighting that and also bringing these pre-consulted views from your constituency here in this webinar here with us. We are very grateful for that. So we will now move ahead to the panel discussion, and we have quite many questions that have come from different youth participants in the webinar through the Slido that we have. If you still want to ask some question, my colleagues will post the link to the Slido in the chat, so you can go ahead and ask your question as well. So, but for now, for the starters, we have some questions which I'm going to open to the panelists, and then I'll call upon you to respond. So the first question we have is from George Cooper Platt, and his question is that moving towards green energy is important, but what of the thousands of workers who cannot afford to transfer their skills over green energy, and then what should happen to them? And the second question is that how can we ensure that the governments continue to give renewable energy necessary attention during this pandemic to continue accelerate the energy transition? And the third question, because I want to take three at a time, is that is it economically too soon for young people in African country to be sensitize people to switch to renewable energy? And what about autonomy in electricity supply itself? So I'm gonna perhaps ask Francesco to respond to the first and the second question, and then our youth delegates can come together and answer the question around the African countries and the youth there, especially Chibuna. Asma and Purva, I'll come to you with some questions in the next round. Francesco, please. Colleagues, did you follow what I had mentioned the questions? Oh, can someone please help unmute the DG, please? Thank you. Mr. Lacamera, you're unmuted now. Okay, let me then give the question to Shibuna, and perhaps other youth delegates want to complement, and we come back to the questions for the DG with maybe some more questions as we go down on that. And Shibuna, the question is that how do you feel that is it too soon for young people in African countries to already mobilize for renewable energies and to have this kind of autonomy in the electricity supply? And Asma and Purva, I would like to also ask you this question, that there's a question from Raul Montiel, that how could countries shape their policies to ensure renewable energy transition in cooperation with the private sector without losing income for the state-produced energy? I think the main point here that I would also like you to touch upon is that how you feel or what your positions are when it comes to engagement with private sector from the youth perspective. So Shibuna and Asma and Purva, and then we have DG again to answer the first two questions. Please go ahead, Shibuna.
Okay, thank you, Gratna, for the question. I don't think it's too soon for young people to actually start engaging in order to deploy renewable energy in Africa, because actually right now in Africa, we have over 573 million people who lack access to affordable and clean electricity. Okay, and this number is so alarming, and we have to deploy renewable energy faster, because if we do that, we can be able to meet the electricity demand and also position Africa for sustainable development, because we don't want to keep polluting our environment in Africa. We want to provide affordable, clean energy solutions that will help us to be on the path of energy transition in line with the sustainable development goals. So I don't think it is too soon. In fact, for example, I have a renewable energy startup. I started it while I was in 200 level in my university. So I don't think it's too soon for you to start. So my word out to you is that you should just start now, because if you can start now, you can make the mistakes and you will learn from it. And there's a lot of support when you start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chibuna. Well, I'll add on what you said, because me too, I'm also African. I'm Tunisian, so I live in North Africa. It's true that it won't be very soon, but we believe that youth and also our governments and also the African Union should accelerate this transition and should adopt more renewable energy. So, for example, for the African Union, I believe they should integrate more renewable energy focus in the Agenda 2063, because the aspirations of the AU, they are about sustainable development, social economic development, protecting the environment and all of that. And I believe renewable energy is a great asset. So we need to give more focus for it, because if we have access to electricity in our continent, many services would be better, many things in our continent would be developed. So I believe we should just give more focus, raise more awareness, and get more youth involved. That's why we have this webinar with IRENA, to engage more youth in the energy transition. So when it comes to the engagement of the private sector and the linkage with governments, I believe the private sector and the government sector, they complete each other and should not be in competition. It should be and should be something like in parallel and more like collaboration and cooperation to provide the citizens with what is needed, with the energy they need for a prosperous life. So I believe we should promote for more collaboration, for more incentives by the government sector, for the private sector, to provide decentralization in the energy sector, specifically the renewable energy sector, and providing more diversification in the energy mix.
Thanks so much for that, Asma. Just adding on to what Asma's already said, which I 100% agree with. I think a lot of our advocacy efforts also need some rethinking in terms of if you just look back at how advocacy is shaped in the renewable energy sector, especially I can only talk very specifically also in terms of health. A lot of it has always been very directed for health, at least for health infrastructure and energy consumption in the healthcare sector. A lot of it has been directed straight at government. And we often forget that these are two systems that go hand in hand with each other, and you cannot just have one system switching to renewable energy when the other system doesn't really step up on those lines. So I think the idea of just complementing, as Asma said, and also not only in terms of action, but our advocacies also need to be complemented in a similar fashion.
Oh, okay, I think that I can come in, and in the meantime that you put again the audio for our moderator, trying to respond at least to one of the questions that has been posted, the one concerning the jobs in a transition period. As you know, the just transition has been always in the center of the thinking of the agency. In this respect, we welcome the fact that the policy initiative of the European Commission on the new Green Deal has made very clear that a large share of the money of the new Green Deal is going for the just transition. It means that naturally in any transition there are the winner and the loser, and we have to try to have only winner in this transition. And when we say that this tragedy of the COVID-19 can be also an opportunity, it means that in intervening so evilly the state into the economy, the state can accelerate the move from the sector of the energy system that have proven to be not anymore actual, where just a volatility of the price have stranded entire sector from the market, that there is the possibility to have the capacity to train the people from moving from one sector to another. So, and as you know, in all the work of the agency, moving to clean energy and moving to the energy transition is not a technological, it's just a technological choice. So I agree that renewables, so the technology is not an option, is a requirement, has been said by Bulwa, if I remember well. But it's also true that if we don't put the policy measure that make possible that the society is able to integrate this in their own life, we miss an opportunity. So it's evident that there must be policies that make possible for people that is losing the job in the old world may be trained and coming to work in the new world. I don't think that could be out of the reach the fact that people that is working in oil gas can work also on wind and solar. Think of the offshore wind. We have all oil and gas that offshore. So the technology sometimes, the knowledge is more or less the same in certain points. So we think that it's possible, and we have to accompany the shift, the technological shift, with also the policy measures they make the people moving to the new sectors.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those elaborate answers, all the youth delegates and also DG and Chiba. You captured very well the perspective of what African young people feel and what is the statistics there, which is something really interesting that you brought up. And Asma and Purva very well noted the perspectives from your region and also from the health perspective, how this looks like. Mr. La Camera also very well noted about the point that you made, how renewable energy task force, or the task force that is already working in the coal sector, is not the one that can perhaps right now work in the renewable energy sector. But this is again something that we have to keep addressing if we talk about just transition. Mr. Lakemera, I have another follow-up question for you, and the question is from Lydia Sanz Lozano, and Lydia has asked, how can we ensure that governments continue to give renewable energies the attention that they should be giving now that we are in this recovery phase from the Build Back Better pandemic? And there is also a question about how energy is a cross-cutting issue. However, when we are looking at what is given for the energy when it comes to crisis response and disbursement of funds, there are priorities like WASH, health, food security, shelter, etc. And energy as a priority sometimes gets lower in the rank, even though it plays a very big role in the energy transformation and environmental transformation. So what do you think that multilateral bodies, national governments, and donors should be doing in order to change that narrative? And especially, what is the perspective of youth on that? So these two questions on you, on the prioritization of energy funds, and on how should governments continue to prioritize renewable energies, even in the time of COVID. Mr. La Camera, thank you for responding.
I think that our panelist has already given an answer to this question, where they made clear the nexus between energy, health, water. So especially for the African countries, the only way to provide the energy needed in the health system is through renewables, especially for remote communities. So that's a choice that should be inevitable. Concerning the how we can ensure that this will happen, so how we can ensure that energy and the energy transformation remain a priority. First of all, we have to say that the trend before the COVID was very clear. The energy transition was already in place, because for 8 years in a row, as you well know, I'm sure, the installed capacity of renewables has been outpacing the traditional one. Last year, 72%, 3/4 of new installed capacity was coming from renewables. We also show in our cost reports, just launched on the 2nd of June, that renewable is largely the most competitive way to produce energy. We have shown in our analysis how there are 1,200 gigawatts of coal plants, more than 1,000 plants, that next year will be operating more. Operating those plants will be more expensive or less competitive than build new renewable plants. So we are really in a turning point on this respect. Naturally, these are trends that are untouchable in my point of view. The fact is that in this moment, lobbyists, political party, entities may try to gain what they can from this situation. So first of all is what as young people will do to make the politicians make the right choice. And I want to say that we have not to push for doing the right choice, but try to avoid it to do the wrong choices. So it's important that what we can do as a multilateral organization, we come with our report to show the evidence. And now we are going to publish in 15 days a new report that will link the response of to the pandemic in the short term with the medium and long term objective of our global renewable outlook that was in line in this scenario proposed with the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. We have seen how the UN and the Secretary General is insisting in this direction. How many companies have wrote to the politicians, to the government, to say the green is the right way to do. People say that there is not question of green or growth. The fact is there is no growth without green. So all these things belong to the policy world, and we, all of us, in our role as citizen, as working for intergovernmental organization, in my case, we have to show that it's possible and it's useful to go in the direction of the deep decarbonization of our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Lacamera, for that response and what you mentioned about what role of an intergovernmental organization like IRENA is in this case. And I would also point out to our guests today that last week, the Global Environmental Facility, GEF, authorized over $490 million of dollars as funding for climate projects. That means we are still, there is hope. We are moving forward. Even if we are in a pandemic, there are funding and financial mechanisms that are still operating and supporting climate change mitigation and adaptation. And after all, energy, renewable energy, is not just sort of a track of its own, but it's also interlinked. It comes from the co-benefits to mitigation action, it comes from co-benefits to the adaptation action. There's this whole nexus approach that we have to often take into account when we go to talk about renewable energy in context of multilateralism per se. Thank you everyone for this first round of chat and interaction, and now we will move on to the second round of panel, and then followed by another short interaction. And the question or the theme of the second panel is, how can youth engagement be further supported in the time of COVID-19? As you can already see from the different presentations by our panelists, by youth delegates, young people are already mobilizing and taking action all over the world. However, their engagement has also been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the schools and colleges remain closed, young people are often using remote ways to continue learning while being still subjected to digital divide. At the same time, many youth NGOs and initiatives, which run on a small-scale grants, have been impacted as young people find new ways to adapt and cope with the current situation. Over the last years, we also saw huge mobilization where young people took to streets demanding their rights for a habitable planet. Social distancing has impacted their rights to assemble and to continue this momentum. This, of course, becomes even more worse in countries where there are less rights for democratic and political participation. Last but not the least, the intersessional meetings of IRENA were scheduled to take place in June 2020, and there were plans to hold some youth workshops in the lead up to those meetings. The plans which also took backseat in light of the ongoing crisis. Therefore, it is crucial to focus how engagement of youth can be further supported in these times. What can IRENA as an agency do? What are young people already doing? What can young people further do? And how can they be supported in their role? And to kickstart these discussions, we have with us, again, a diverse panel with us today. And I would like to invite our first speaker, Rida Rizvi, who is also from the coordination team of the SDG 7 Youth Constituency. And she will be talking about technology and financing of renewables in context of energy markets and what this means, again, from a climate and a youth perspective. Rita, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ravna. So interestingly, when we are talking about COVID-19, we're looking at the energy markets, which is the main thing which is happening. In energy markets right now, what is happening is that the energy consumption is being reduced in a lot of countries to about minus 12% to minus 18%, which again is basically directly impacting the financial health of our discos, our distribution companies, our GNT investments. As a result of which we are seeing that the working cash capital of these utilities is basically reducing, and which is eventually going to cause an impact in the investment strategies of these energy infrastructure. So also another main point that we are seeing is that there's going to, because of the uncertainty in the load growth, we are seeing that there is going to be over contracting in a lot of countries, and there is going to be forecasting challenges as well in the future. Another important thing is that there is a fluctuation in FX prices. As we all know, there is a reduction in oil prices right now, in fuel prices, which eventually is stopping people from investing in any of these energy markets right now. And again, that results in delay in CODs of a lot of construction projects have been delayed, including in case of solar, we are seeing out of 50 gigawatt, which was scheduled for Q2 to Q4 in this year, has been delayed. Around 30 gigawatt has been delayed. So looking at all of this, we are seeing that a lot of these contracts are actually going to, there is a threat of force majeure, and there's a threat of default payment risk. So what exactly is the solution to all of this? Is I would like to look into it from a technological perspective as well as regulatory measures. So it's happening in Brazil and a lot of other Latin American countries as well, that they're conducting structured negotiations and refinancing mechanisms. And when we're talking about that, it's interesting that renewables is something which has been promoted because of that. Also, we are seeing that there is a strategy which has been implemented, a financing strategy. It's called coming up with a pool of loans, in which what the government is doing, regulators are doing, is they're combining loans from all the local banks, and they're providing with optimal like in optimized conditions, some loans to these discos and to all of these developers. Interestingly, in order to mitigate this cash flow, lack of cash flow, what another thing which the governments, a lot of the financing agencies are doing, is they're providing RECs, which is again like promoting renewables, renewable energy credits, and mitigating climate change at the same time. So and some of the short-term solution that we're seeing is that the discos are like in deregulated markets. They're selling their plant assets, and etc. Also, important thing for the youth in this perspective is to understanding, to having this skill set. We have renewables, we have a lot of scope for renewables right now, but what we may lack is a proper skill set. Having an advanced knowledge of structured finance, of project finance, is very important right now. That is something our youth should be involved in. Another important thing that we are seeing from the technological perspective is that there is, we see that because there is reduction in oil prices, there is a lot of people, they do not want to invest on these variable fuel prices anymore. Now they want to rely on local procurement processes, and by local and robust procurement processes, we're looking at solar equipment, we're looking at off-grid systems, off-grid solar systems for the healthcare centers. So that is another good opportunity for the youth as well, in which we are creating more jobs for the renewable energy, and in which we are basically seeing that youth, especially in countries like Africa, can actually be a part of this amazing mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita, for that. Also highlighting how the case is going in, especially in developing countries with the falling fuel prices, and that becomes again a deterrent for communities and for families to invest sort of in the renewable energy aspect. Thanks for highlighting that. Next, we have Sajid Vijaysurya, who is a part of Science Policy Circle and also active member of the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, and involved in the youth engagement on renewable energy processes since quite a while, since we started engaging on this topic as the Youth Constituency. So Sajid would be talking to us about perspectives from the research and academia sectors, as well as what non-governmental sectors are bringing and what are some engagement initiatives by and for young people.
Thank you. And I must tell that my intervention would be an extension of what the other youth advocates has been saying as well. So when we just take the scope of the academia and researchers and the non-governmental sector, so even when we focus on the academia, there is the formal education that we saw the sort of the sudden change during the COVID-19, but there is the non-formal and informal education sector that might have gone unnoticed how they respond and how this pause affected them because there must not have been a mechanism of switching into online mode even. So, and when you also look at the research sectors, there is academic institutions that are doing research, and then there are research labs. Currently, I'm working at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in USA, so I could relate to that. And also there are startup efforts from young people who are actually manufacturing renewable energy equipment, and they are installing them as well. And when you go to the advocacy sector, there are non-governmental organizations who are doing the groundwork in advocacy in energy transition and transformation. So these sectors all were affected. And also when we again focusing on energy, the researchers or practitioners are involved in generation, transmission, and storage sector, and also the consumer end of energy. So these young people, millions of young people are already spread across these segments. And what pandemic did was brought all these segments to a sudden pause. So when I said a sudden pause, this happened in different scales in different countries. When you go from developed countries to countries in transition to the least developed countries, the government's reactions on lockdowns were different. So the effect on the youth were very much different and in a broader spectrum. And so what this did was, it was a great test of the resilience of the young people. So we can summarize it as that. So some young people were unable to access the online or software tools that were made available. And I know some young people were stuck in certain locations, certain cities for a couple of months without being able to go to their hometowns. So this affected their access to their research and the academia resources that were made available. And then some young people had to reach their research experiments and research material in different innovative ways because they were stuck in different circumstances. And also so most of the young people had to wait after the pause for their employment because of the greater uncertainty. So they were very cautious even now because of the spread of the COVID being not equal in different places. So what opportunities emerged through this was there were change of methods of how young people approach research. They went back into design phases. They went back into software design and from the tools they had available. And then there was a greater determination to go for low emission research because the respiratory diseases were additionally vulnerable in the COVID-19. And then there were startup organizations who changed their product lines, and non-government organizations who were doing advocacy work changed their delivery methods, finding new innovative methods. So this sums up how the sort of the reaction to that pause and how the resilience came through it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sajid. And indeed, like someone from academia sector, you touched upon a lot of range of issues and how they are interconnected, what young people are facing and how they are responding to the current scenario. So thank you for that intervention, and also for the incredible work that you and your colleagues have been doing to advance youth engagement on these topics. So last but not the least, we have Meredith Adler, who is the head of Student Energy, which is one of the leading youth organizations that is working on the topic of young people and renewable energies for the last couple of years. They have been doing tremendous work when it comes to their engagement in different processes, World Energy Council, and they also helped organize the first ever IRENA Youth Forum in January this year. So we are very happy to have you here with us, Meredith. And Meredith would be talking to us about the role of effective youth engagement in bringing innovative system-level solutions to energy planning in the current situation caused by COVID-19, specifically touching on what green recovery and the role of young people is in those processes. Meredith.
Thank you, Ugratna. And thank you all for having me on the webinar. As Ugratna said, I'm Meredith Adler, and I'm the Executive Director with Student Energy. And we have a network of about 50,000 young people in over 120 different countries who are working to become the next generation of energy leaders as they lead very much in their communities today. And so one thing I would really like to touch on within this conversation, and as many people have alluded to, youth engagement is very important. But I would say that actually there's a time now to challenge governments to move beyond youth engagement to youth empowerment. And the difference is that youth empowerment is when you work with young people to achieve shared objectives. And so I think as we look to recover from COVID, as we look towards the Green New Deal, as we look towards what we want the world to look like, we need to see young people as a tangible actor within that, not just people to be consulted in a workshop or given a nice photo op. I think it goes much beyond that. And where governments, I think, have struggled, and we at Student Energy have the luxury of having been around trying to do this for about 10 years, so we have some great lessons from this. But I think where governments often struggle is understanding what role youth can play and how they can play it effectively. And often it's not necessarily about putting youth over in one section and having adults over in another. It's really about how do you make sure that young people have the tools in the toolkit to be able to sit at the table. And so Student Energy does a variety of training programs, like our Leaders Fellowship program that teaches people skills to get projects completed, or Greenpreneurs program that focuses very much on entrepreneurship alongside the Global Green Growth Institute and Youth Climate Lab. But these types of programs, what they do is they actually allow for youth innovation to be unlocked, because young people are now speaking the language of business, speaking the language of government. They know how to make a strategic plan, a budget, whatever it is that they need to be able to sit at the table. And then when youth engagement is unlocked, really what you can do is work together on these shared objectives, and intergenerational collaboration is shown to be one of the most effective tools for innovation, because you have young people and you have their ideas and their way of seeing the world a little bit differently because they haven't been in the system for 10 years. And then you have the experience of the energy industry, which is vast and which is necessary. There are reasons that the energy industry is so complex, and it's because of many of the reasons that my co-panelists have pointed out around how much impacts health and education and all of these things that are very essential to our lives. And so really thinking, my challenge, I guess, to IRENA and to all governments as they think through the COVID recovery is to think about how are you really addressing what we need for the long term. Yes, we need to recover from this global pandemic, and yes, we need to recover from these economic shocks, but also we need to build a different world. We need to build a world that is much more equitable. We need to build a world where you don't have riots in the streets because of inequity in different countries. We need to build a world where women are equally valued to men. These are all part of the COVID recovery and all part of the renewable energy transition. And young people are uniquely positioned to think about this. This generation is very globally minded, very focused on equity, and very focused on climate change. And I think there's a huge opportunity for governments to leverage this through really enabling youth empowerment. And I think partnering with some groups that we've seen here today, I think young people have really identified these gaps. There's just a a power imbalance really on how these things work. And once again, it's not about thinking about young people as an external force, but how do you work with young people to really leverage what they know to produce more effective solutions for what we all need.
So thank you, Meredith, for that very clear intervention on highlighting what meaningful youth engagement means, and that young people are building a world that is based on globalization, on multilateralism, even if the world leaders, or at least some of the world leaders or politicians lack that political leadership. And political leadership is not going to fall from the sky. It has to come from the movements. It has to come from the people that are part of the societies and who have to push their governments to take action, and at some point of time become leaders themselves. And we have heard already, from these incredible youth delegates that are already taking this leadership and taking the charge of making sure that there is change and that there is empowerment happening throughout as we move ahead in this COVID-19. I also thank you for highlighting the role of women and how our responses to COVID-19 recovery have to be both gender sensitive and gender inclusive, and we cannot afford to leave behind the minorities and the groups that are always or historically have been cornered and not included in the system. We would now move to interaction phase, and we already have some questions from our Slido platform, and the first question is for our DG, Mr. Lacamera, and the question is from Georgina Nastase. And Georgina asks Mr. Lacamera that you talked about transition from oil and gas to renewable energy. What is your advice on how we can do that? And secondly, are there going to be any support for female engineers within IRENA now that we are in this pandemic and looking at the transformations from oil and gas to the renewable energy aspect? DG, the floor is yours.
I didn't understand perfectly the second part of the question.
Okay, allow me to repeat. Yeah, the question was, what are some specific support that IRENA gives to female engineers and women staff, especially now that we are in recovery phase for COVID-19? Are there any special initiatives or support that would be provided to the female engineers?
Okay. So I will try also to respond to this question, but also to some of the intervention of our panelists. So trying to give a more comprehensive response to this debate. That's also what the first part of the question of Georgina, how we can do that. First of all, you have pointed out how the COVID-19 is prejudicing many aspects of our life. Concerning the energy system, the fact is that also renewables have been impacted. So that's for sure that we are assisting to some delay on projects that were expected to be concluded this year or other. But the fact is that the renewable sector has been the energy sector that has been less impacted because of this crisis. If you look at the data in Europe, but elsewhere, if you want just to mention Europe, we have assisted in the first 4 months of this year how the share of the electricity production by coal, gas, oil has been decreasing sharply. And the only form of energy that has been rising has been renewables. So the renewables has been proven to be the most resilient way to produce energy. So the question, it is not if we will go in that direction, no, because we are going that direction, and this is unstoppable, just because renewables are the most convenient way to produce energy. What has to be avoided, and I repeat on this, that we can try to bail out a little bit the past in this situation. So we have to encourage the move to the new world. Is what IRENA in his work is trying to point out, that we have to give, from this tragedy, we need to give people hope for a better world. What does it mean, better world? Where we have a cleaner energy system, but where we have a more just society. And working the energy system can give the option to work for a better society, giving electricity to people that has no access, to give a cleaner way to cook for in this case, for billion people, with a growth impact on Earth, on other. And also, because has been highlighted in the first section, what we can do, for example, for the young entrepreneur. We have talked about the initiative of the young people as a startup and others. What came to my mind, you post the incubation program and something like this, that we as IRENA, we have launched the climate investment platform. The climate investment platform is organized in 14 regional platforms that are already active, and where we are receiving ideas for projects. We are going to organize, as soon as the situation will improve, our investment forum, the IRENA investment forum in the different regions. What comes from that discussion, that we can try to have in this investment forum a section of the investment forum dedicated to young entrepreneurs, where we can try to facilitate as much as possible the matching between the project of the young and the financial resources that are on the market. So this is something that is coming exactly from our discussion here today, and I hope my people is taking note of this. So the new word, I think, is everything that is relevant in building the new world is clean energy system, but it's justice. So we have to work for a more just world. Concerning what we can do for empower you, you say that if we have any specific support for women engineer, we have launched, as you know, this capacity building program for least developed countries, young people, and that naturally we have received the application. Due to the pandemic, we had to wait the pandemic to make people coming to Abu Dhabi or Bonn. So I hope that by the next autumn, the people that has been presented the application can be finally selected and bring to have their experience here in the IRENA. Naturally, also the young engineer can be part of this startup program that we will try to find a good place in our IRENA investment forum. What also you can do for IRENA to disseminate the language. So we can try to understand how we can better organize our meeting, because conference like this is important to maintain the momentum, but we have to try to find a more operational way, and I think that you can be very helpful in disseminate our work, and also some time to represent the IRENA concern in the different forum where you are present. So I will think about it, but I will try to set an organization of your presence that will be more continuous, and allow you to represent and disseminate as far as possible the message of IRENA for a cleaner and more just world. I cannot tell you now, but I will consult also my people, and we will try to come with some kind of youth ambassador for renewable energy, something like this. Let me think about it, and I will come back to you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Lakemera, for that comprehensive answer and for touching upon what IRENA is doing to support youth through its capacity building program, especially young people and women from developing countries, and also for your offer to develop the youth ambassador or youth engagement sort of program from IRENA's side. And from the Youth Constituency, we can assure you this is something we would like to work together with IRENA, and we are with you on this in development of this youth engagement program for your side. So thank you so much for your offer on that. Then moving on, I have two questions, and I would like to then give floor to each of the youth speakers, and then at the end to our DG again to respond to sort of both these questions collectively. The first question, perhaps Rita and Meredith, you could focus on bit, and then the second question is something that Sajid and DG could also focus on a bit more. So the first question is, what capacity do young people have to advocate for renewable energy when RE projects involve major infrastructural or financial changes that we cannot control? So essentially the economy not being very stable and fluctuable. And the second question then is, how can students and youth that are younger can help with this cause? This is from Alice, who is 16-year-old, and she wants to know how can she promote or spread this message, and how can IRENA and the youth movements support her in spreading these topics. So Rita and Meredith, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. So I think for youth, it's very important right now to have very objective goals set. And for that, like I said previously as well, we need very strong skill sets that cater particularly for renewables and for the not just technological interventions, but also we're talking about advocacy. So when we're talking about things like that, as an engineer, we're talking about like a very niche market of renewables in which there's so many technological skill sets that you can learn. And right now we are global citizens, so we have access to almost all forms of energy or all forms of data sets. So that is one thing that we should be really looking at. And another important thing is that this objective should be that there should be like a T-shaped learning curve. When I'm talking about that, what I mean is there should be depth as well as breadth to what you want to learn. So if each member of the youth community has at least one particular very strong skill set, and then they build on that, on the breadth of their skill sets, we are actually talking about cross-cutting solutions for these renewable energy interventions.
Yeah,
thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree with what Rita had to say, and then I would add to that and just think about what you as young people really have to offer. You know, many young people are the voters and consumers that either companies or governments are looking to reach, and traditionally those have not been taken very seriously because young people don't often act together. But now we're seeing, especially in a time of COVID, it's youth-led organizations who are able to transition online very quickly. It's young people who are still able to organize events and do great things like that. And so really take to heart what it is that you have to offer and build upon that. And as Rita was saying, I'd say a multidisciplinary skill set is essential. Learning things that go beyond your university degree are really essential. Even if you're studying engineering or policy or what have you, it's likely that you need cross-cutting disciplines, and that's where I would look externally as well to different training programs that are happening. Many of them are online, like our fellowship program, and they really can work to accelerate your skill set and your mentor network to help you see what you have to offer and who you can collaborate with.
Thank you so much, Meredith and Rita, for those nice answers that you captured. Then I think we move on to this sort of the last question, which is on what can youth do, what can youth organizations do, and then again to you, Mr. Lacamera. I'm sorry if this is a bit of a repetition, but from a 16-year-old, how can IRENA support young people to make change and mainstream their voices? So Sajid, and then I'd pass on the closing words to Mr. Lacamera. Then we move on to another announcement. Sajid.
Thank you, Ravna. So the perfect example of what youth organizations and youth platforms can do was demonstrated by Benjamin and Chiagozi at the very beginning. So one of the main platforms that we have created is the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, where no matter where you come from, which region you come from, which thematic area you are interested in, you can engage in the events organized by the platform, as well as the events supported by the platform. So that is a vast engagement opportunity that young people can, of course, ask questions. If you have questions, you can ask the global focal points, and there's 24 people, young people, coordination team from representing different thematics, different regional representatives. So you can always reach out to them and ask your questions. And if you need tools to organize your own events and you need knowledge and any resources, research resources, you can always reach out to the constituency. That is the whole point of having it as well, so that you get to have the chance to be equipped and spread the message of what the transformation towards more sustainable and cleaner and affordable energy future. So the young organizations, youth-led, youth-serving organizations can follow that example and create more spaces for young people, and then get connected wherever you are from and whichever resources that you have. So that is my response to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajid, and thanks for reiterating the aspect of collective engagement, that how important it is that all young people, irrespective of their socioeconomic status, irrespective of what country they come from, are able to engage in a meaningful way on international level. I would like to now pass on words to our DG, Mr. Lacamera, please.
Oh, just some last words. Naturally, what I can suggest to you, trying to be closer to the agency, also through the social means that we use. We are using mainly Twitter as social media, but you can also access to our website and see what we are doing, and you can also post us with any proposal you may consider of your interest and in line with IRENA work through our 14 digital platform. We will not enter in the way the youth is organizing themselves, itself, that's for sure. But it's also sure that I wish to come with something more robust in the relationship among IRENA and the young people. And I will come to you with something enough soon, I suppose. And one other thing that I forgot to say, that we may organize for you, if you think it could be of your interest, some webinar on how to use the project navigator for the preparation of your projects. This, I think, could be done, easily done. And I hope also the people that is listening to take notes of this, so I will not forget. So surely we will come with this thing. One is that we will dedicate a session to the young and to our investment forum. I think this could be something interesting. We will come with webinars for Project Navigator, and we will come with an idea of a group of young ambassadors of IRENA and we'll come with you with some criteria how to build this new creature in our today work. I really wish to thank you everyone for your participation, but I think I wish to give to you, moderator Hugh Gagner, the last word in this meeting. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. La Camera, for that very nice ending to this, and a very forward-looking one, that all proposals are on table and that youth organizations have to work together with IRENA in a meaningful way that enhances and respects engagement of youth and also the capacities that their movements bring. And we are very grateful, and I would like to again reassure you that the Youth Constituency and our groups are committed to be working with you and your office. We already have excellent engagement with the governance division and with the communication colleagues, and we would continue to keep building on that further. Now, as you all know, this is the first IRENA Youth Talk, and we have heard from so many excellent speakers and panelists today on what they are doing, on what role of young people and youth organizations is. And now we have to move forward. We have to continue this momentum that we started some months ago with IRENA in New York at the Climate Summit. And then that continued and manifested itself into the IRENA Youth Forum this year. And the actions cannot stop. If anything, we have to build back better, and we have to build back stronger from what we have done. So we are pleased to share with you that in 2021, IRENA, in collaboration with Youth Constituency and organizations from different parts of the world, will be convening the second IRENA Youth Forum in January next year in the lead up to the 11th Assembly of IRENA. Looking at the calendar of meetings we have, this certainly would be the first youth event of the year and must mark a message of hope, solidarity, strength, meaningful youth engagement, and action. We are very pleased to have with us Gerardo Escamilla from the IRENA Secretariat, who will be presenting with us the launch of the IRENA Youth Video Competition. Gerardo is representing not only the young heart of the IRENA Secretariat, but also the Latin American youth perspective that he is bringing today here with us. Gerardo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ravna, and thank you very much, panelists, for your time. It was a very interesting webinar. I hope our audience got inspired by the ideas we heard today in this webinar, because here at IRENA, we want to hear your voice. That's why we're inviting you to participate in IRENA's Youth Video Contest. The theme of the contest is going to be renewable energy in the time of COVID-19, Youth Actions for Recovery. So whoever wins this 1-minute video contest will get a chance to contribute to the IRENA Youth Forum that you just mentioned, planned for January 2021 at IRENA headquarters. Also, their video will be shared on IRENA social media and featured on a newsroom article on the IRENA website. So if you are 30 years old or younger, no matter where you come from, no matter where you live, this is your chance to express yourself to IRENA and to the world. COVID-19 disrupted our societies in multiple areas, including the role of renewable energy. So think about the ways that renewable energy has changed your community, especially as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and share your thoughts through a 1-minute video. Starting tomorrow, 9th of June, you'll have 1 month to create your video in English or another language with English subtitles, upload it on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram using the hashtag IRENA Youth Contest, and tagging IRENA on your video description. We will stop receiving your submissions on the 8th of July. Then a committee of 7 representatives will evaluate the video submissions. This committee is going to be made up of 4 representatives from the youth constituencies of the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, and 3 people from IRENA. The committee will select the winner of the video based on 3 criteria. The first one is relevance and adherence to the theme. So does your video show a clear message through a youth perspective on renewable energy in the time of COVID-19? Is that the central topic of your video? The second one is originality and creativity. Are you creating something unique, a fresh and original perspective that also tells a good story. And the third point is potential viewer impact. Is your video inspiring the young people to act? Can your thoughts be applied to others? So get creative, write down your ideas, prepare a clear message, and get the camera rolling, because in this 1-minute video, your message may inspire the world. This is your chance to take the spotlight, and we in IRENA are listening. For more information, you can scan the QR code in this presentation, but you can also write us an email to youth@irena.org. Thank you very much, and we wish you good luck.
Thank you very much, Gerardo, for that overview of the IRENA, the video contest, youth video contest that is being launched. And I also thank you for reflecting inputs from the youth actually in the design of this video contest. I've seen the email chains, the long discussions that have taken place on this, and we are only grateful to you for having this very inclusive model of designing this program together with youth. And we hope that we continue this for future such programs of IRENA, that youth have a say in the design of the programs themselves, and of course the implementation and their empowerment that they do. With this, we would then, I would like to invite our DG, Mr. Camara, for one last final intervention and closing remarks, after which we would close the webinar, and maybe a call for action, Mr. Camara, or a message that you have for young people who are watching from different parts of the world, over 200 of them in this call.
Oh no, please, not too long speech. I think we had a very good seminar, a lot of ideas, and also some proposals for future work. So I think we are fully engaged. I think that's I've seen that, so we have been in certain moments around 350 people participating to this webinar is a good success in my point of view. I'm really eager to work with you in the future. I think I need having the young people from the side of renewables, from the side of changing for a better world. So please stay together, and we are working, having perfectly in mind that the role of the youth is the role that will decide the sort of our world tomorrow. Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much. Grazie molte. Thanks a lot to everybody. Ciao, arrivederci. Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.
So I was saying, Mr. Camara has, La Camara has left us, but I would just like to end on some closing notes that the message is loud and clear. This is not business as usual, and we cannot go back to what we considered was normal, because that was not normal. I read an interesting quote the other day that said, "The system is not broken. The system was built this way." So if anything that this pandemic or COVID-19 gives us is that we have to become more closer to our nature, we have to become more closer to the biodiversity, and we have to live in harmony with our planet and with its different species. So if you're a young person watching this and who joined us here today, I call upon you to take action, to get involved. If you're an agency watching us, or a member state, or a stakeholders, I invite you to support young people, to engage them as your peers, as your equal partners, and give them the space that they deserve and work, because it is the right thing to do. With this, I wish you all a very good evening, afternoon, night, depending on where you are. And I hope you and your families are doing safe. Please take care of yourself, and we will meet very, very soon again for another IRENA Youth Talk. And until then, please continue to engage with the IRENA social media channels, with the Youth Constituency, with these different youth organizations that you heard today, and keep taking action. Thank you very much.